206.
Okay. Okay, so first on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda today is public content.
Comment.
Comment.
Comment. Ron's going to provide us his content. So why don't you come on up first, Ron, and get started.
Can he have a mic?
Yeah. This is in regards to the hose timers, and thank you. This is in regards to the hose timers, and Jim was quite correct. They are not tamper-proof, unfortunately, and
Could you
I
hold the
wasn't able
mic?
to print up 5 copies, but you can pass it around. There's 1 or 2 mechanical ones which are well-made. They're metal. The other ones are much more elaborate. They're electronic, and they can sync with Alexa and Siri and all that, and way too much overkill for this place. But I'll let you guys look at these, and they range in price from like $8, $9, $10 all the way up to like $100. But
And what was that again?
I'm sorry.
What is that again?
The
They're
timers on
the timers for the outdoor faucets. I discussed it with Don a little bit.
It's not one, it's just
Kinda
one
has to be
copy
like an
of
honor
everything.
system, I think, like it always has been, and hopefully nobody abuses it, because the simple mechanical timers, you can set them to 15 minutes, but somebody could also turn it up to an hour, and you don't want that, so I don't know if there's any kind of a solution there, but they're definitely not tamper-proof.
And what would you recommend?
I did do a walk around and I counted all the outside faucets here, and there's like 15 of them. But I'm going to say out of those 15, there's probably only 8 or 9 that are actually being used. There's some in the back of the buildings, on the back side that look like they haven't been turned on in years. So I don't think you're talking about that many that you have to keep an eye on, but I would have absolutely no problem with Tammy just putting out a notice, in all fairness, and just saying, hey, be reasonable and don't water more than you have to, and if you are using too much water, then, we have to do something about it, because it is our drinking water. Okay?
So, a low-cost mechanical timer, I mean, since everything can be tampered with, basically.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop somebody from turning it to an hour instead of 15
So,
minutes.
at least if people were on the honor system, a lot of people could set a timer, and that cost would be $10 a faucet.
Yeah, they range anywhere from like $10 to $30, but I personally have not seen anybody here water for much more than 10 or 15 minutes, maybe 20, but I can't speak for everybody here.
Typically, you notice the front ones, the faucets are the ones that are being used, not the ones on the back of the building.
Correct. Yep. And again, if it rains, 2 or 3 times a week, there's no reason for anybody to have to water. There really isn't. If it's a drought situation, July and August, when you get the long dry spells, then you do have to water every day, every other day. As you can tell, the ground gets so dry it cracks, but
Sure.
other than that, just common sense.
Ron, have you thought at all about some kind of a system where if somebody is overwatering, overusing the water, your privileges be
Yeah,
either,
I can't say so personally. I mean, there was one individual that was, watering the sidewalk. I think we discussed that.
we did.
Yeah.
Tammy, what's the housing authority policy on watering? There is none.
Well, so the water policy was that you're not allowed to wash your cars, you're not allowed to, you water the lawn. It really was very, very vague on what it listed. You can't have a swimming pool, some of it was you would think is common sense, but it wasn't specific.
That was just our policy, not DHCD.
Yeah, DHCD's guidelines are the obvious: no swimming pools, no washing vehicles. You can't have a sprinkler in the yard for your kid to run around, but there's no actual, there's nothing in this 760 CMR or their lease that states that they can't water.
I have not seen anybody wash a car since I've been here, and that's.
Oh, I know,
common sense,
yeah.
So no one, that's what I was gonna say, I can't imagine anybody washing their cars here.
No,
So it's really a non-issue.
Right.
right.
Okay, so just so we clear the air on that.
It seems to me that the only issue was a single incident that happened on the Amherst Street property, and that was a split hose.
We had a tenant here that was watering the lawn on weekends because maintenance and myself aren't here.
Okay,
But the incident where the well up at Hillside was, the hose was left to go and the tanks ran low.
yeah. Well, that was caused by a split in the hose, right? They didn't shut the water off, but the hose was.
They
there
didn't
was
shut
a
the water off all the way.
So the hose was split and the water was running, so it was, okay. And did you speak to the incident where the water on the weekend business?
Yep.
So you addressed that situation and it was taken care of?
Eventually, yes. It happened a couple times after, but eventually she stopped.
So the watering policy has to follow the growing of whatever vegetables, fruits, or whatever first, right? First you gotta talk about that, because some of those aren't supposed to be out there, and if you don't have them.
Yeah, it's all kind of tied in
Yeah,
together.
so I don't think we can pick one first, or we have
Okay.
to pick one first.
So we're not discussing our policies right now anyway, we're just
No.
having
Yep.
open comment.
Okay.
Okay, Ron, thank you for your detailed research, by the way.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, Jim Sewell, you're up next.
I don't know why we even discussed the water issue. It's a non-issue up in Pinville Manor.
Would you please
Never had
use
a
the mic,
problem.
use the mic so we
We've
can,
never had a
The mic is
problem
just
here
for-
with the
Yeah, I
water.
know.
I don't know why that's even an issue, why we're even discussing it right now, but I got other things to talk about. Number one is, somebody was going around looking for, soliciting people to come to the meeting today, and was told that the people had no clue that today was a meeting. Now, I've discussed this before. It was supposed to be a meeting notice put on the bulletin boards in each hallway. The one that's up there now was for the March 25th meeting, nothing for this month's meeting. I don't know why, instead of putting it on a bulletin board, we can't just put a notice on the front doors of all the entrances to let people know when the meeting is. That should be a simple enough thing to do. People are entitled to know when the meeting's is. One other thing I have, I've been for the past year trying to get a replacement for the bathroom ceiling light fixture exhaust. For a year I've been trying to get it fixed. I keep getting excuse after excuse after excuse. Right now, it sounds like a mariachi band every time you turn the light on in the bathroom now.
Is that in your bathroom?
Yes.
Your particular bathroom?
Yes.
And that's been going on for a year. I can't get results. My May 31st is gonna be the deadline. One of two things will happen. I'll either go to DHCD with it, although I'd rather keep it in-house, or I'll just buy one, put it in, and send you the bill. You wanna talk about the new rules for the meetings for the tenants now, or wait till we get to the right section for that? Because I've got a comment on that as well.
You can make all the comments you want right now, that's what this is. time
Okay,
is for.
good.
We'll listen to all comments.
Okay. Suppose we keep it clean, right? Number 6, I think, should be stricken in its entirety. Number 6 reads, "In public participation of a meeting, the Board of Directors will not hear personal charges or complaints regarding GHA personnel, nor against any member of the GHA Board of Directors or the GHA community."
We don't have that, you don't have that because I didn't know he was talking
How
about
else
it.
are we gonna complain?
We're listening. You can talk about it, anything you want.
Good. That should, number 6, in my opinion, should be stricken from this list of rules.
I didn't pass out copies of what he's talking about because I didn't know what he was going to be talking about it.
Okay, so, okay, we'll have to look at that.
Okay? That's all I got, folks.
That would be the,
We're just listening.
Thank you.
We don't make any comments, we don't pass any
yep.
decision, we don't do anything. We're here to listen only at this time.
Okay. Next is Diane.
I believe so, Diane, yes.
I was just wondering if there's a status report on this matter.
You don't have to get up. You don't have to get up.
So I was saying if there was a status report on the, making the step into a ramp in that building 1 we talked about last week.
Yep, so we have 3 quotes from different construction companies. We are right now waiting to hear word back from DHCD to see if they will fund it through health and safety guidelines. So we are in the process of it. In the meantime, Jim has painted the top part of the step white, and there's a cone there to let people remind them that there's a step.
I think there should be, that line should go.
I have asked him, but they've been there, he's not here yet. Tomorrow he's back. I felt the same way too. Should be on this side.
Yeah, you have to be
Yeah.
on the step, at the step.
Yeah.
to receive it.
Mhm.
Is that it, Diane? Okay, and next is Karen Nato.
I just wanted to mention something about what Ron had said about the water. If the water's on for, say, 10 minutes and you're watering and then it shuts off, whatever the timer is, if another person comes right over and uses a hose, will it go back on for them? These hoses sometimes are shared by people.
I don't know, I've never used a timer.
It's a mechanical timer, you have to turn the dial, just like on an egg timer.
So you have the person that's watering does it?
The person who orders it after you would have to turn it back
Oh,
on,
okay.
assuming somebody's using your hose.
Okay. And one other thing I want to bring up is the verbal harassment that I've been receiving for a very long time, and I need to have something done about it. And when I came home on March 3rd from seeing my mother who's dying, that just died now, and she wasn't dead yet, it was horrible. I come up my stairs at 8:30 at night, glue squirted into my keyhole, I couldn't even get in. And it took us, my friend and I, about 25 minutes. I didn't know to call Jim and have him see it so that it was believable, because I guess I'm not believable enough by just saying it, but I didn't think about that. But if it happens again, there will be something done with the police And I don't know, I know Elder Abuse Services have been to see me many times. I've had a couple of people doing this now. It's just, I just want, leave me alone. Don't talk to me. I won't talk to you. Can you please just stop? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay, this falls under grievance process. So you have, well, that's the process we have to go through to get it resolved. And there is a recommended resolution that is going to be presented to the appropriate individuals here in the not too distant future.
Thank you.
Okay? Okay.
That's it.
That's it for public comment. Next up is director's report.
Yep, not a whole lot going on this month to let you guys know about. There's still a vacancy up at Hillside. We should be placing somebody in there real soon.
Do you have a resident to go in? You have
Do I have anybody right now? No.
No, okay.
No, still in the process. I did hire a landscaping company to do the lawns up at Hillside every other week. Very cost effective. I was quite surprised. It'll save us some money this year. They're going to start beginning of May and they'll run until October. Haven't heard anything about the hallways and when they're going to start yet. They, I think the tiles haven't come in. There's been an issue with the tiles. And then the ramp, we're just waiting to find out. Because we just turned in our capital improvement plan and then requesting the health and safety funds, we had to wait for that to be approved before I can request them to allocate the funds right away. So that's all I got.
Okay.
Talking about the landscaping for Hillside, are we going to have the same situation we had last year where we have one of the residents that happened to be a resident?
No, we hired a landscaping company.
So he's not going to be?
Nope.
So this is going to be just Hillside?
Yep.
And the maintenance people will take care of
Yep.
this property? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, if there's nothing else, no other questions for the director here, we're going to move on to policy review and approval. And since these three policies are somewhat interrelated, even though we'll start by focusing on the water policy, grounds, flower beds, and weed killer insecticides, etc., are all interrelated. So the real question on the water policy.
I have a question, or ask. I would like a corner part of my building on the railing side, my own corner, so I can plant or redo something in that area for me. Because Karen has a whole area plus part of Alex. So I was wondering if
That's
there's...
part of what we're doing
Oh,
today.
all right.
Okay, so let's.
One, please. I know
Okay,
I've
but-
given that section to Alex many times, and Jane upstairs. I don't want that section.
Okay.
I tend it, I do.
No more interruptions right now. We've had our comment. We have to get on with the business. At an appropriate point, we'll entertain a few questions at that point. But we need to sort of get through this because you were talking about, here's what I want, where we have to establish a general policy. Okay, so why don't I send it down to you based on, let's start sort of with the garden.
Are you talking to him or me?
Oh.
I'm not sure who you're talking to. Don or me?
No, I'm talking to Dawn,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Because Dawn has done some research. So Dawn, let's sort of start with you about the garden and the the options and just sort of in general how you might see sort of a workable solution here.
No solution's gonna be picture perfect at this point, but I'm having a tendency to say the vegetables, it's coming to planting season, and I just don't wanna see what happened last year happen this year.
Which was what, Don?
There was a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch, but a considerable amount of discussion over whose tomato plant was whose, and it upset the apple cart for the folks that wanted to plant their tomato plants and other vegetation. I hate to see that happen again, but I also, I'm torn about restricting that at this point. Though Tammy and I have spoken about in the back somewhere having areas tilled up, small area where you can plant vegetables, tomatoes, whatever you want to plant. But a couple of things were pointed out to me when we did our walkthrough last month, that the land over by the between the back of buildings 3 and 4, more specifically 3, is where the shed is, and that was proposed to do something with that. However, members of the board pointed out to me how mushy it was back there, and a lot of the time it is spongy in that area. So I'm torn about saying, yeah, well, let's relegate that to the folks that want to have vegetable gardens. So there's no easy solution.
How many people want to have gardens?
We haven't put it out yet.
Well, how about last year?
Last year, there were only 4 people that I'm aware of that planted any kind of vegetables. And they were either tomato plants, pepper plants, and there was one other thing I can't remember.
And again, where were they planted?
They were planted in the flower beds. There was building 2 and 3.
So where were those raised beds that were up back? Where were those used?
Okay, those were used out on the patio 2 years ago?
2 years ago. We didn't do them last year.
So 2 years ago, we had a community garden type thing where those raised flower beds were on the patio.
And how
And
that-
it started off pretty good.
And then,
Well, it started off pretty good, but then you have people who like fried green tomatoes, and you like people who like red tomatoes. And there were never any red tomatoes because people like fried green tomatoes, so they don't get red. So there was that issue, and then it was...
Who planted them? Or?
Well, we planted them. The Housing Authority bought it and planted it for everybody.
Oh, I see.
So, there were days that there were a lot of vegetables, out on a table, and then there were days where there was nothing of other things that people wanted. So that was difficult. Last year, we just decided not to do it again. There was, we had borrowed some of the equipment from Jim, from his garden. He had A-frames that were nice with the vegetables to grow.
How many of those raised beds are there?
4.
4?
You put one behind each building?
No, we don't want to do that.
No.
What was the question?
No, is it possible to put the raised beds out here and have whoever wants to plant in it have a designated area in that raised bed and let them plant their own instead of you planting them? And,
They're not that big. They're like 6 feet long.
okay, so you got 4 of them.
So
So if you
there's-
cut each one of them in half and the people could sign up to plant their tomato in their half, it would be assigned to that specific tenant, and,
You're stuck with 8 people.
You couldn't
Well-
grow tomato plants in those.
In a raised bed?
They're 3 feet off the ground to begin with. You'd have to be a pretty tall person to reach the top of the tomato.
I could reach it, too.
Isn't that
And I'm
better
not
than
a very
kneeling
tall
down?
person.
That's better than kneeling down.
Raised beds work.
Yeah.
Raised beds will
Raised
work
beds
for
are
everything.
much easier for people who
Yeah.
have knee problems or
Back problems.
any other
Yeah.
physical ailment. They could just walk in and put their plant in there.
Right. I mean, I understand his point because they are 3 feet off the ground. So, you know, if you plant, some of the ones that Jack grows are pretty high, you know, they're.
So cut 6 inches off each leg.
Yeah.
Well, they could grow lower.
Make 'em
push your
lower.
plant. How do you water those beds out there?
When we had them out here, we had a hose on this side of the building and a hose on that side of the building. The tenants signed up to water on specific days and times.
I mean,
Sometimes
some
it was a
out here,
problem,
too.
sometimes it wasn't.
And that was vegetables only, no flowers.
Yeah, it was all vegetables. And then it was in addition to the plants that they had in front of the yard. Problem is, not every tenant has access to planting in front of their building. So in talking with everybody since last month, I personally would like to see that the front of each building is divided into 4. So if that person wants to be able to garden, they can garden. If the person doesn't want to be able to garden, well, then that's fine. But what happens is now, say the 3 of them have a spot to garden, and one of them moves out, and the next person moves in, wants to garden, then, you know, that's mine. I've been here for, you know, so coming up with something that's going to work in the long term is what I would like to be able to do, to say that, you know what, there's, you get a half of the side. Each apartment gets a half of the side. And then that way, if you choose to, you can garden. If you choose not to garden, then, you know, we'll throw some sort of low-lying vegetation in to make it look nice.
And the gardens in front of the apartments are flowers only.
That's the issue.
That's the
Diane.
issue. Last year, we had somebody's, one of the tenants who doesn't get around very well, a friend of hers was picking tomatoes for her. Somebody else saw and said, don't pick those aren't yours. There was a little squabble, upset more people than it should have, and that's what started the whole thing with the, you know, those aren't yours, those are somebody else's, when in fact, that person did have permission to get into the, so, that's where everything started.
How many units turn over in 12 months?
In 12 months?
Yes.
Knock on wood, none of them.
Do we have in 12 months?
Hardly none of them.
You know, there are times when we don't have any turnover, and then there are times when, and we've gone, I think the last person we put in was November, you know,
Okay,
but
so-
we had a variety, you know, last year we had a bunch of people.
Okay, so basically, the fact that somebody could move in from outside and want to garden statistically is like
Right.
almost non-existent. So
Mhm.
we should not even consider that in how we want to approach this. We shouldn't worry about somebody not being able to plant immediately because they moved in, so.
Right.
It seemed to me, I agree with Gloria, that I would take those raised beds and put them out where you did put them and see what kind of people want to, doesn't seem to me like you're going to run out of space.
No?
But if there are so many people interested in taking half of that or whatever, then get a few more raised beds. And I think it'd be a community builder out here for people to come here instead of worrying about anywhere else. You got the water here, one hose, and it's just a no-brainer to me.
Okay.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. Just a point of fact on the raised beds. I was one of the people watering, and I can tell you for a fact, don't even try to grow a tomato plant in there, they're not deep enough. Tomato plants have deep roots. Mine are in front of the building I live in. They're pretty deep roots, it's good quality soil, and people invest their time and money here to put that soil in. It's not just the soil that was here. Those raised beds are good for like peppers, lettuce, things like that, but not for tomato plants. And they have tried to grow some in front of the fence out here, and the same thing, there's just too much sun out on that patio. They just don't do well. A few things did do well, but not so much on the tomato plants.
Or eggplants, that have deep eggplants.
I'm sorry?
Eggplants.
Yes.
Well,
How deep are the, I'm confused, how deep are these?
They're about that deep.
Not that deep.
I don't know,
They're like
Put the
that.
2x8.
I have raised beds, and we have no problem with tomatoes. Roots just spread out. I don't know, I'm not gonna disagree, but
No, see, well, one of the guys did tell me that the quality of the soil wasn't that good in those beds,
Right.
and they did pay to have it brought in. If they bought it somewhere
We
around
bought
here,
it
It
at-
just wasn't
on the
that good. It was kind of sandy and gravelly. It wasn't good quality loam, or whatever you want to call it, loam. It's just, the quality just wasn't there. Not anybody's fault, but it just wasn't going well in there.
well, there's no dirt in them now, right?
Yeah, they are.
Well,
It's dirt
most
now.
of the time, after a while, you throw that dirt away and get some new dirt. You don't try to use it all the time, because it only runs out. That's why you turn gardens over and so on. So I would think with some good soil, I think it'd be fine.
So who would be responsible for the soil?
I don't know, that's a good question.
well, if you're gonna provide the beds, just get some bags of soil, garden soil.
Good
with-
compost.
With Miracle Grow stuff in them, you can buy the bags of them and put them in.
Put Miracle Grow on vegetables.
Some people do.
Good soil.
You know
can do
what,
without
I
it.
think that there should just be flowers in front of the buildings, no vegetables, period.
I disagree with that.
Well, you can, and I can,
Thank you.
but that's how I feel, because it's creating too much of an issues between the tenants. We're not here to be policemen. If things are supposed to have flowers in front of the buildings or something like that, we're not here to play vegetables.
I think if we give every apartment a spot in their flower bed, then they can do whatever it is they want with that section.
The great majority of the people here that grow vegetables, and I know every one of them, all do a good job, and they take pride in what they do, and they shouldn't be punished because of one or two crackpots in plain English who have to start trouble.
Yeah, well, that was my question. We are getting deeply involved in this policy because of how many individuals? How many conflicts?
One
One conflict,
One major conflict, yes, Joe.
one major conflict.
Personally, I don't have an issue if Tammy is amenable to saying, okay, that's your spot. Do with it as you may, but make it look nice. Tend to it. You know, and we'll do something with the watering situation that is palatable to everybody. At one point, Tammy had mentioned to me about using those raised flower beds for the 4 handicapped units. That can work out here too. Jim, you were mentioning that would make it a community. Well, yeah, that would be your community center, you have your picnic tables, and you have the handicapped flower beds. If you want to say to the tenants that would take those beds over, because they can't garden under normal conditions in the soil that's provided by the virtue of the land, have them buy the soil to go in it, bags of soil. That would be another alternative. But it is a very time-consuming task that we're involved with.
Well, it's just, is it better to put it all in one place than worrying about, this is your space, this is your space, you know, all the whole way, this is your spaces. It's like, then you're gonna get into, oh, they moved into my space a bit. It's like, you're just creating a Pandora's box here over things. When you try to make it simpler,
And add the water.
But if it's
No.
not just the vegetables, it's gonna be the flowers.
Yeah.
Because they're not talking, the spaces in front of their buildings, like Carol, and she's not talking about growing vegetables. She's talking about being able to put flowers and a windmill and other things in front of her apartment. Like, they take pride in their apartments and in front of them, and some of them look really, really nice. I'm gonna have them come to my house and help me with my house, but some of them don't do anything with them, so it's not just growing vegetables, and it's being able to have their own spot to do, put whatever they want in it.
And are those obstacles to maintenance mowing, or those aren't the ones?
Well, as long as they're not, there's, the obstacles to maintenance are the shepherd's hooks and there's a couple rose bushes or prickly bushes that come out, and they have to duck when they go around, so it would be easier if that stuff is not right on the line, but farther back in. That way they don't have to worry about it.
Well, there was an issue about bricks and
Right,
stuff
because they
too.
can't slide around. So if the bricks are, ground level, saying this is, in the front, then it makes it easier for them.
And some
but they
stuff-
weed whack there, don't they? Do they weed whack around where they need to?
Where they need to,
Obviously,
yeah.
just, the mower doesn't go, they have to
Right.
weed whack.
Right.
Weed whack against the bricks like we do at home. I mean, that's why, that's not an issue. It shouldn't be an issue.
All right.
How about the climbing ones that go into the,
Well, the climbing ones, they go into the, they can get into the windows, into the sidings, into the areas that they shouldn't, especially around the heat pump
Yeah.
condensate
Yeah.
machines.
I
Okay.
just have an idea about the gardens and how to do it. Their buildings go A, C, C, D. So the first one on the left should be A's garden. And then that one that I was giving to whoever wants it, B. And then C would be mine and D would be Carol's. Or Carol can take B if Jane doesn't want it. But that B garden, there's a C garden right under my window, which I have windows too, and I've been planting there for 6 years. And all of a sudden, they're moving my stuff to put in their decorations. And I don't really like that. I don't think it's fair. I have no problem with if you want to put an A, B, C, D, section it off for apartment A, apartment B. It's an idea.
Does anybody else have any issue with assigning each person a plot of area there for their gardening or flowers? Or is that the fairest way to do it? I'm looking for comments from the audience, from the residents.
I thought that's the way it was anyways. You each, had half of the spot. I thought that's the way it was since I moved in.
Is what we're doing needed?
We each have each have a side. That's the way I thought it was when we moved in.
What about upstairs?
No,
What about upstairs? Upstairs, if you were downstairs, you
Yeah,
go
but
out.
you
and
have
think-
half and half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, ours,
no, that's only 2 people.
you got two sides.
Yeah, A, B, C.
you've got 4 people though, 4 people that want to have a.
Divide each side in half is what she's saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought it was.
Ours
And
is-
some of us work together. If we decide to, and then if one moves out, it's understood. The other person gets that side, the new person.
Can everything be worked out without any written guideline?
No.
No.
We
No.
I want it from the residents.
Common sense?
You want to mark
Go ahead,
A,
Jim.
you want to mark A and B, that's fine.
No, I'm just saying, if we did absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
what would happen in this growing season?
There would be arguments.
It's happened in the past years. You're gonna get a couple of screw walls speaking up, trying to upset everybody. We always get past it though.
Okay, so besides a few little issues, you think you could make this
Where I
work?
live right over here, my upstairs neighbor chooses not to do anything outside, but I always do ask her every year. And again, it's common sense, it's voluntary. If she wants to put something in there, I'm perfectly okay with it. So it's you know, it's cooperation, it's just people talking to each other and, you know, it's, like we all discussed it shouldn't even be an issue. It's just, it's common sense.
So how do we resolve a conflict?
I think it's not as much of a conflict as some people would like it to be, you know? I don't know, I've been here 5 or 6 years, and 99% of the time, it's not an issue.
That's good to hear.
So there are 1 or 2 individuals who choose to make it that way, but it shouldn't be that way. You know, much bigger issues in the world than this.
Well, I think I have confidence that the tenants can make it work, like you've been doing for years. And if something comes up, again, just common sense, and try to work something out as responsible people do, you know?
May I just interject one thought? I think there should be a policy. I think it can be simplified, because there are a couple of other things in here that I think need to go on record, and that is the use of any type of trap by a tenant. That needs to be expressed. I don't believe it's in policy yet, is it, Tammy?
No.
Okay.
What are you talking about now?
If you go down on the grounds flower beds around the buildings, paper.
Yeah,
use
the
of-
chopping of, killing a wild animal or
Yes.
something, is that thing?
What are they
Well, that's not
trapping?
anything to do with vegetables.
What are
Well,
they
it's the
trapping?
flower beds.
It's the flower
And the
beds.
flower beds.
It's the flower bed issue.
What are they trapping?
Mouse snap traps.
Oh, mouse.
So, I mean, I have a resident bunny. I hope he comes back this year. And he destroys most of my plants. I don't care. I like watching the bunny.
I just think this is all something that we should not even be involved with.
I agree.
Okay, but if we did some kind of policy guideline, and I think that everyone here thinks that if we do something, it needs to be simple and very minimal, not trying to define everything. What would we put down that would be of benefit? Do we want to have a central authority here, basically record that you have this plot of land, that you're this area outside of your residence there, that you know, that's yours for the season? That's what would that be of benefit? You know, certainly I agree that any policy here, there should be a policy, you know, no insecticides, none of these bad chemicals, no traps for the animals. I don't disagree with that, but is there anything related to gardening, whether it's flowers or vegetables, that would benefit everybody, that should be written down?
I would like to see some sort of basic put down, because I can guarantee I'm going to get a phone call at some point that says, well, they moved my stuff. Well, they, you know, I want to put this there. So I guess I'm looking for some sort of basic to, because as much as I think it's common sense, when you're fighting with your neighbor, it's not.
Well,
And I can't certainly just say it's common sense.
So what would take the emotion out of it? What rule or guideline would you want to see?
I just think that dividing, you know, in front of each area to allow everybody the opportunity to have a spot, you know, like Ron asks if Dawn wants to, she doesn't. There are other people who don't garden, you know, but you know whether your neighbor does or doesn't. So it's just, not everybody is as nice as him and says, do you want to garden this year? I can guarantee that doesn't happen to a lot of the tenants around here.
If you don't
So,
mind, I would just suggest if there's a contested area, so to speak, just put some kind of a divider in there. This is your area, this is your area.
yeah,
end of
and,
argument.
and that's all I'm asking, for it to just be a basic, simple, that it's, there are areas, and if you're not sure where your area is, come to the office.
But you don't need a policy for that, do you? Why would we need a policy for that?
No, because we
I'm-
need something in writing. so
I
we
just
follow
am
the
looking for
policy.
guidelines, so, that there is some sort of basic policy that it's, to stop the arguing.
Well, don't they plant along the back of the buildings also and the sides? When we were walking out around the side of the building, there was things out
There's
there.
some stuff that has been planted in years past that comes back every
Every
year.
year.
Like those,
There's perennials that's come
the
back.
perennials, the big
Well, I
cabbage
know, but
plants.
I've seen tomato plants out there in the years that I've walked around before. You and I have done that, Diane. We've seen vegetable gardens along the side of the, I don't know what even buildings numbers are, but if you go along the sidewalk in between the two buildings and you walk to the right and go around the back of the building, all along there, we've seen vegetables planted in there.
Are there problems with the ones in the back?
No.
Well, that's good.
So why don't you just put, in each front of each building, put 4 quadrants, divide each side in half and say, this is your half of that side.
Okay.
And within that space, not the,
Mhm.
shepherd's hooks outside and.
Okay.
And if it's not neatly kept,
Is there
then
any conflict with
there'll
being
be.
decided?
By me.
Okay, well, whatever we do here, we need to decide today to give the residents time to begin to take advantage of the weather here. So, it still seems to me that the biggest issue that we're looking at here is conflict resolution. What happens when 2 people conflict over the area?
Well, if they're outlined and designated, this goes with this apartment. Each apartment has a specific place, then there shouldn't be any conflict.
Okay, and Ron, do you have an alternative to this approach?
That's
No,
what he
I
just
have no
said.
problem with that. If you want to put dividers in, that, to me, like I said, that ends the argument. And I think 95% of the people here are pretty civil and get along and are cooperative, and there's 1 or 2 that have to, make an issue out of something that shouldn't be an issue.
Jim?
Pretty much the same thing. We got just a couple of people that are making it difficult for everybody.
So because of that, I'm trying to make sure whatever we come up with is simple. It's not complicated, it doesn't step on everybody's toes, so that's why I'm throwing it back out here. But if this approach is acceptable to everybody, then let's try it. Whatever doesn't work out, let's revisit it early next year, or make comments late in the season, so we can end up having sort of a loose policy that we don't have to think about anymore, that is acceptable to pretty much everybody.
Are we including the water and the insecticides, or is that just
It could be separate, maybe? I don't know.
sounds like it's all tied in.
I know it's tied in, what's simpler? Just to have a
One
separate,
policy, I'd say.
well, a separate policy addresses a specific thing. So let's just leave it that way because it's easy. Okay, so then 2 things. What do we now title this policy, and what is the language that we're going to use on this policy for dividing all the areas up for flowers and vegetable gardening and stuff?
Still has to be flower beds, grounds and flower beds.
Go ahead, Diane.
If you divide it, and it's already somebody's garden from last year, and and they've got stuff that comes up with perennials.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem moving those things from my gardens were all planted for 6 years because the man that lived there died. He had me taking care of his garden because he was very sick and in an apartment where Alex is. So I had that garden. Alex didn't seem to want it. I offered it to Jane. Like if it's AD, it would be James and Alex's on one side and CD, mine by the railing, and the one on the end would be D, which makes sense. And it would be no fighting, just keep your stuff out of everybody's, don't decorate their garden because it's not your garden.
Can I speak?
Yes.
For one thing, I just want to know, are we all in kindergarten? You know what I mean? Why can't we just leave well enough alone? And let people continue doing what they've always done?
Because it doesn't work for everybody.
But it doesn't work for only a few people, not for everybody here. You know what, 95% of the people, they do their thing and they do it right and they do it nice. So it's just a suggestion. Because I think that, I don't know, to leave well enough alone would be good enough for me. I don't know about anybody else.
Well, again, it comes down to conflict resolution. That's why we're trying to come up with some kind of policy so that somebody then can't go in and now we got to go through grievances. And every time we do that, we hire people. We have to pay them to do a grievance, and then we take it down that path. So we're trying to come up with some guidelines that, hey, here's the rule, here's the parameters. It's not, I don't like to use the word rules per se, we're all adults, but, here's the parameters here that we're going to operate under. And then if that doesn't work, we ultimately want feedback to make sure. But the goal is to take the excessive conflict out of the process. That's really what we're trying to do. So.
It's like maybe the only thing you'd change in here was the only thing grow was flowers, so you could work vegetables. This is pretty good the way it is.
So far, we've wasted about 45 minutes of everybody's time on nonsense issues. It shouldn't even be issues.
But it is.
Unfortunately, this is the reality of government and governing, Jim. I mean, it's all about conflicts, and like you said, 99% of everybody is fine, but it's always that 1% that disrupts everything.
But
The water issue was something that happened at another facility. It didn't even happen here.
Yeah. But most policies are made because they're going to deal with, I'll throw a percent, it's going to deal with 90% of the people involved in it. Here we're talking about policies that most I'm listening to is really not an issue.
Right.
We're trying to create it for a very small population. That's not what policies are created for. You don't cater to the people who are not following things and come up with this big thing when most of you are looking and saying, what are we wasting our time talking about this? You can work this out. And you deal with the few issues that may come up. And no matter what, even if you have a policy, you're still going to have issues. Someone's going to be testing the policy, stretching it out, trying to take advantage of something. I don't think we need to do that. The only one I think we need to do here is this weed killer, insecticide, fertilizer. It should be a separate one. We should approve this one. Can I mention this now? Can we take a vote on this one?
Yeah, but before we get there, I would like to point one thing out, okay? Tammy is paid for 18 hours a week.
Oh, come on.
Okay? And if we're going to, part of the thing about conflict resolution is that we're trying to create guidelines so that Tammy does not spend an excessive amount of time not doing her work, because she has to do that other work, then it's on her, it's on her to get it done anyway. But partly what we're trying to do is to have an environment so that we also minimize the amount of time we have to take trying to resolve conflicts like this, which we really shouldn't even be at this point, but that's sort of where it's at. So.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's sort of the only reason for something there. But yes, to get something done.
You just hit on a bigger issue, Joe.
Which is?
Tammy's time. we've got one particular tenant, who I can't name right now, who has put in over 50 grievances against Tammy. She's the one that should be booted out of here.
Well, we're not going to discuss that. We're talking about flower beds and water and weed killer right now. Or let's not get sidetracked.
We don't have to discuss it, I'm just making a point.
Well,
Yes.
So if we took out just that sentence, the only thing to be planted by tenants in the flower beds are flowers, this policy seems pretty good.
Want me to read it?
Go
Everybody
ahead.
know?
Sorry.
So, skip that sentence?
I don't know, I mean, it just seems
Well, I'll
that's the
make-
one thing we.
well, obviously, they want to plant tomatoes, so
Or we change it
that's
to
not,
the
tomatoes are a
flowers
flower.
and vegetables, so we could do that.
So we have a policy that says grounds, flower beds around the buildings. The grounds around each building are the property of the Granby Housing Authority. The Housing Authority welcomes the dedication and care that is put into the flower beds by the tenants. Residents must seek permission from management before planting, pruning, trimming, or removing trees, shrubs, plants, flowers, or bushes. Is that a whole new thing? That statement's a new thing?
No.
That's a new
Okay.
thing.
That is a new thing or not?
No,
That's
that's
been
not
there?
new, that's always been there.
And the residents all know that? Tenants all know that policy?
Well,
It's
no,
never been
the
enforced.
residents
No
must seek
one's-
permission is new.
Never been
It is.
enforced.
That's never been enforced.
Okay.
Okay, so now the next statement says, the only thing to be planted by tenants in the flower beds are flowers. Is that still correct or not?
No, they're planting tomatoes in there. That's,
So we take that sentence out?
Why don't we just add, it's permissible to
If you-
plant flowers and vegetables in your full space.
But I think we
But
already
that's what it
say
is.
that above.
You say that above.
This
Residents
was
must seek
proposed.
permission before
Okay.
planting, pruning, trimming, removing trees, shrubs, plants,
Yeah, okay,
Okay,
flowers.
so we take the next sentence out.
okay.
Yes.
Next it says, please remember, each section of flower bed must be shared equally amongst the tenants in that hallway. No tenant is to plant in a section that is not directly around their specific hallway. That make sense to everyone?
Is that
No,
feasible?
Just take
that-
care
No,
of
hold it.
section you know of.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is
they have to,
Is that feasible for everybody? Would there be an exception where someone would not be able to plant right around their specific hallway?
no.
No,
Tony
not
says
really, no.
No, okay.
All vegetation planted in the back of the buildings by the heat pump condensers must be low flowering as to not grow into the condensers. Then it says the use of any type of trap by a tenant to catch/kill any animal is not allowed anywhere on GHA property. That's pretty clear.
Okay, did that address what Tammy wanted to address about, I guess if you're seeking permission first, that's when you get to sort of make sure that they're assigned to the proper location.
Right.
Okay. Now, is everybody gonna have to re-seek permission, or we're just gonna go from where we're at? And I guess people will seek permission if there's a conflict at
Right.
this point.
Well, if there's a conflict with them, then we'll clear it up.
Okay,
But 90% of the tenants have their own spots.
So it's pretty well correct, except with that one sentence taken
Okay.
out.
and is there anything that we're not addressing here, or that we're making too complicated,
Well, you're not
residents?
doing water, is that separate?
No, that's separate.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
So with that, I'd make a motion to approve the policy I just read, minus that one statement taken out.
Second.
okay. And any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Gloria?
I,
Okay. Okay, the next one let's vote on is the weed killer
Okay,
insecticide.
this
because
one,
that's simple.
this one reads weed killer / insecticides / fertilizers. Granby Housing Authority water supply comes from a well. The use of weed killers, even though it's said especially Roundup, insecticides and fertilizers by tenants is not allowed on GHA property, as this may be harmful to the drinking water supply. Contaminants that seep into the ground have a detrimental effect on our drinking water and therefore our health.
Okay, so before we vote on this, so is there anybody that is this a problem for residents if we, I mean, I guess it's not allowed anyway, right? Tammy? Or
Never been allowed?
insecticides are not allowed anyway under DHC?
No, they're not. We did have a tenant that was using Roundup last year.
Okay, okay.
Well, this is fertilizer. What about fertilizing your tomato plants?
That's against, can't do it.
Can't do it.
Right, so is that's an issue for people with...
We can take that out.
Are there fertilizers that could be used?
Well,
Are there fertilizers that could be used?
Chicken manure. Yeah.
Only natural? Okay.
Is it Miracle-Gro a weed killer as well?
I don't think so. Is it? I think it's
Well, it
just
makes things grow, so...
No, I think they might put some in there.
Yeah, and some people just won't use it because they're afraid of what may be in it, but most people do, but.
Okay.
Are we taking out fertilizer, or are we putting in natural?
So what do we do? So does everybody out here use fertilizer when they plant?
sure, they,
Grow, that just helps the plants to grow more. But I didn't think that was harmful.
Or I
Well,
can take
we're-
the word fertilizer out.
Yeah, I'm just saying, are there detrimental fertilizers that would be an issue to the water supply?
Yeah, you got one.
Well, there's organic fertilizers, which is okay, so again, I don't want to have someone can I put this down by reading the fine
Right.
print and everywhere? It's just like,
Okay,
I don't know how to deal with that. Do you take fertilizers out is a good question.
We could put in, with fertilizers to speak to Jim about it, because he would know for the water supply what we can allow and what we can't.
in terms of fertilizers?
Right, so a fertilizer, you just would have to be to check with the office to make sure it's not.
So we can just put in fertilizer must be approved?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or except approved, you could,
Okay.
it could stay
All right.
everything this way, and then after fertilizers,
Approved by maintenance?
just say except GHA approved in parentheses, and then it would let everything else around. Okay.
So how's that read?
So the use of weed killers, especially Roundup insecticides and fertilizers except GHA approved by tenants is not allowed on GHA property, as this may be harmful to the drinking water supply. Contaminants that seep into the ground have a detrimental effect on our drinking water and therefore our health. Okay, so I need a motion to approve unless someone wants it modified.
Makes sense to me. I'll approve this weed killer insecticide fertilizer with that small change.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so what do we want to do on water supply right now?
I think we just let it go.
Okay. If it looks like it's an issue, then we'll try some manual timers or something.
Okay.
We'll get a few and try that. Okay. Okay, so, no water policy.
well, we'll just go by the current water policy, which is no washing cars and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Okay, so,
Treasurer's report?
okay, treasurer's report.
Nothing unusual here, correct?
No.
So just one question, Tammy.
Yep.
On the rent rolls on 705, which has the bigger accounts receivable, is that long-term?
No, a lot of that is, so $1,600 of that is the tenant that we wrote off last month that we didn't get out of before Gary did his paperwork.
Okay.
Okay.
So that brings that down to 2,000. Their new rents were effective April 1st, so some of these are, actually, this is March. Some of them are, it's a little bit with all of them. It's not anybody in particular is really behind, they're just adjusting to their new rents that are coming up, and they were trying to schedule,
Okay.
so it's not that high right now.
Okay. Okay, then if there's not any questions, I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve treasurer's report.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Diane, was that an aye?
Yeah.
All right, the next one is the budget revision, which on the top, it says annual operating budget,
Yep.
page 1 through 7. Under classification, it says revenue.
Right.
Okay. The budget revision has to be done because the Department of Labor industry rates came out for Dakota and Jim's increase, and this reflects the increase you gave me on March 1st.
Okay. And that's the only revision?
Those are the only revisions.
Okay. And which account number is that? Do you know?
It would be account 4110 for mine, and the maintenance one is 4410, 3/4 of the way down on the bottom.
Okay, that's why I couldn't find it. Okay. Maintenance, okay, very good. Do we have to vote on this?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So
You'll-
I'm gonna need a motion to accept the revised annual operating budget.
Make a motion to accept the revised annual operating budget.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Quarterly modernization report is the one with the sideways paper. And this just lists the approved capital projects.
Okay.
So all the projects are moving along.
Yeah, most of these are, the only project we have open right now is the hallway.
Hallway.
Everything else has been closed out, pretty much.
You still don't know when they're gonna start though?
No, we're waiting to find out when they get the
Okay.
tiles.
Have we done anything about pest control? Have we started doing anything around the buildings?
I've touched base with him, and
A
he'll,
spray,
yeah,
whatever,
he comes, he gets,
Yeah, so that's all under.
he does the outside, yep, twice a year he comes in.
Need a vote on this too, Tammy?
Yes, we do.
I'll make a motion to approve the quarterly consolidated modernization cost report.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the warrant report.
Was there anything out of the ordinary, Tammy, that we're paying off?
No. The electric bill is still really high, but there's nothing we can do about that. The Home Depot bill is high, but that's only because the fire stops are in that bill, but DHCD will be reimbursing us most of that.
Are we facing a cost increase with Republic Services?
Not that I've been told, and we just signed our new contract last year, so it shouldn't,
Well, I know, okay, I was just curious, because I know that Waste Management, Town of Granby has been notified that our rates are
Yeah.
getting low
I haven't,
significantly.
I haven't heard anything. Our bill is higher this month only because one of the tenants moved out and overloaded the dumpster. So we get knocked for a overloaded dumpster.
Okay, if there's not any questions, then I'll need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the warrant report?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I have one piece of business before we adjourn. We are seeking, Tammy now is executive director of for two different communities. And like we did for Mary Billion, I need to send out a formal letter according to Carolina, requesting that we increase her hours. It will not increase her pay, but we're going to do exactly what we did last time. We would increase her hours by 3/4 of an hour a week so that then she would be able to qualify for health insurance. So, and again, last time I pushed hard and rationalized it, so just, you know, I want the board's approval to seek that health insurance benefit for her. And my rationale is, my initial draft, I'm adding 2 paragraphs, but in response, dear Ms. Gonzalez, in response to your letter of March 17, 2022 to Executive Director Tammy Bilbao, a precedent exists to make an exception to PHN 2022-02 and increase hours by 0.75 hours per week for Executive Director Bilbao. This exception was made for Mary Billion, now working at the Amherst Housing Authority. She was Executive Director of 2 housing authorities. Executive Director Bilbao also works for 2 housing authorities. So basically, in the letter, what I'm claiming is, whereas last time I pressured them based on the idea that you got state mandated and she's working full-time because she's working for two different housing authorities, Tammy is in the same boat as Mary. And so what I'm basically arguing is that because she's in essence working full-time, and there is a precedent that in fact there's a precedent for them to provide health insurance benefits for her. So.
Somebody said no once, right?
Oh, they automatically say no. No, I mean, because it's written in the job description, and it says you need, to get health insurance benefits, you need 18.75 hours. And for this level of facility, they only go to 18 hours, so. But I just need a motion to send a letter on her behalf.
And that's the letter you just read from.
Well, that's that. I'll finish the draft later today because there were a couple of sections that I was pulling from before in terms of what I did. But this is basically the argument, yes, so from this letter that I read.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion?
And I would ask, when you complete that letter, would you send it along to us, to email it to us?
Before it goes out to Carolina by email, I'll send it to Tammy so she can distribute it to everybody. And if everybody has something else that they want to put in.
Okay.
I'm just putting in more supporting information. Saying
Okay.
a precedent exists, she's done it before, she deserves it because she's working full-time. I mean, that's the basic argument.
Okay.
So, okay, so do I have a second?
I did, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then I just need a motion to adjourn.
Set the time for the next meeting?
Next meeting.
Oh, I always do that, don't I? Hey, you had something, Tina?
I do. There are a few checks that need to be signed, and then I need all of your signature for the paperwork to go to DHCD
Okay.
that
Okay,
we approve. I don't have a calendar again with me, so
Third Wednesday's May 18th.
May 18th works.
sounds good. 2 PM? Okay.
And just so the board knows, I am having surgery next Friday. I will be out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll be back on Thursday. So,
Hope everything's all right.
I'm having LASIK surgery done.
Okay.
Getting rid of these. Can't wait.
Is somebody going to be here to cover?
Shelley will be
Yeah.
Okay, so I need a motion to
Jim's
adjourn.
back from vacation, I
tomorrow.
assume.
He'll be back.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.